So good afternoon. Thank you for having me. I should say that I'm not literally colorblind, but I'm definitely color challenged. I stopped for the red. I stopped for the top traffic light, but in my heart, I really don't think it's red. So if there's a number in that circle on the left, I clearly don't see it. And in this graph on the right, which is supposed to be one red line, one green line, if I had to make a decision based on the property of the red line, there's a 50-50 chance I'd make the wrong decision. So this is one reason I see the world a little differently than many of you do. But I did work 40 years in the insurance industry as an actuary, mostly in New York. I grew up in New York City. As you can probably tell, I've not lost my New York City accent. I like a coffee before I walk the dog. I was across the street on the day of 9/11 and saw things from the street that didn't quite make the television. Towards the end of my actuarial career, I kind of asked myself, is that all there is? And I took some online classes and decided, oh, I can teach, I can do this. And I went back for another degree in education technology. So to anyone who has students who are a little bit older than 18 or 19 and are nervous about going back to school and studying, come on. This is my third year at rmcad. I've taught online for about 10 years. Just before rmcad, I was teaching at an Arizona school. I won't give the name, but it's got the same name as a really big canyon. You might think of it as a great canyon. But I don't want to give the name. I taught there for a while. I enjoyed it very much. And one of the things I enjoyed is they gave me a wide variety of courses to teach. Catch that one, Bruce? Okay. They are a Christian-based college, which was just fine with me because I can talk about math and the Bible. But at some point, this school with the really great canyon came out with a statement of values. And one of their values seemed to imply pretty clearly that they're anti-gay and lesbian. And while I am not gay, I decided I could not, in good conscience, continue working for a school with such a value. And I resigned. But as that door closed, the rmcad door opened. And soon after that, I was hired at rmcad. And I'm happy to be here. So I teach statistics and accounting here at rmcad. I've always suspected that arts students were a little different than other people. And while I really can't articulate how and why that is, I do have a good example. So in the statistics class, we ask you to do a project. And I'm sure all the teachers in the room know that whenever you ask students to do a project, it needs to be something of relevance and importance to the student. And so that's what this statistics project was. You had to pick a topic, come up with some survey questions, design a survey, ask your friends, collect some data, draw out some conclusions. And I had a student whose interest is where is the line between art and pornography? And how do you ask that in a survey? Well, you ask that with pictures. So he had pictures of men, he had pictures of women, naked, above the waist, below the waist, unaroused, aroused, and this was his survey. But he took it very seriously. He learned a lot from it, and he got a good grade. But as I like to tell my wife, honey, if you see me on the computer looking at naked pictures of women, I'm working. Possibly as a result of the education technology degree that I earned. I do a few things in my classes that I don't know if everyone does, and that's really what I'd like to share with you. So the three things I do is I use original cartoons, original videos, and computer simulation. So many people would say that math is hard and math is boring. I don't apologize that math can be hard, but as far as the boring part, I would think it's my responsibility to do something about that. Now certainly this group probably is in agreement with the statement that a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well then, how about a cartoon? I searched for math cartoons on the internet, but none of them really said what I wanted them to say. So I hired some cartoonists, including one from rmcad. I hired Michael Howe. And I designed the specs for some cartoons, and the cartoonists translated those cartoons into specs into cartoons. So here's what I use when I teach logic. So Rene Descartes walks into a bar. The bartender says, "Would you like a beer?" Descartes says, "I think not." Poof! He disappears. So number one, do you get the joke? Not too many, but you need to know Rene Descartes' famous line. I think, therefore I am. 1A, is it funny? Well, I guess not. But more important, is it logical? And it turns out the joke is not logical, based on I think, therefore I am. And that's the purpose of the cartoon. And so certainly we would talk about that in my class. I also use original videos. My course has a textbook. I realize not everyone's course at rmcad has a textbook. I'm sure all textbook authors in math are smarter than I am. And if you're going to study matrix algebra, you will see an equation like that, which is certainly accurate, but is pretty hard to figure out what the heck it is saying. And so I decided I can do better than that equation. And occasionally I will find something in the textbook that I think is really poorly explained. And so I make my own videos.
This is an example of matrix multiplication that we're going to do with a visual approach, a little different from the textbook. We're going to start with your left pointer finger on the first element in the first matrix, and we're going to move it left to right across. And we're going to start with your right pointer finger at the first element in the second matrix, and we're going to move top to bottom. And we're going to do various multiplications and add them together. So let's start. First we have 2 times 0, and then we're going to add that to 3 plus 3 times 5.
In any case, I like the idea of creating my own videos to help explain the textbook when possible. Students generally appreciate the attempt, although clearly my videos are pretty amateurish compared to some of the things I'm sure people here can do. And finally, I use computer simulation. I know there are a lot of game people in the room and in the college. I don't know what the game people learn about simulation, but I certainly hope they learn something about it. In math, there are certainly some problems that are fine algebraically, but are maybe hard to buy into and make more sense with simulation. So here is a very standard probability problem. If you have a group of 30 people, the algebra will tell you the probability is 2 people will have the same birthday, the probability of 70%. I don't know how many people we have here. We could certainly try that, although that would take way too long, so I'm not going to do that. It's a fun thing to try if you have a large enough group. I don't bet, but this is the one thing I would bet on. With 30 people, the probability is 2 will have the same birthday is 70%. And there is an algebraic solution to that, but there's something sort of unsatisfying about either the algebraic solution or even trying it with a group of people once. And one definition of probability is that if you have an experiment and you repeat the experiment over and over and over again, sometimes the results will converge to a single number. And that struck me as a perfect thing to use computer simulation for. So this is Excel, and the columns on the left, I've simulated 30 random numbers. These are random numbers, whole numbers between 1 and 365 in that second column. So 343 translates to December 9th, and so on. So by simulating 30 random numbers like this, I can ask, do I have a match? And here I had a match. I had November 29th as a match. I also had a second match of June 15th. So that's one experiment, and that's like asking this group of people to give me their birthdays once. But the point of computer simulation is once you've set this up once, you can easily do this over and over and over again. And so that's what this 100 simulations column does. So this is simulation 1 from the left, where I did have a match. I repeated this 100 times, The second time, I did not have a match. The third time, I had a match, and so on. And so I accumulate 100 simulations of this, and I could have done 1,000 or 10,000, and so on. And then I summarize the results. So in my 100 simulations, I had 65 matches, which says in the long run, experimentally, I expect 65% of the time, two people have the same birthday. The math result is 70.6. So I didn't hit it exactly. Although in my heart, I think if I'd done this, say, 10,000 times, I would have been very close. But this is an example of simulation. I hope the gamers use simulation somewhere in their work. It's a very powerful tool, and it's fun to do with all sorts of things. So those are the three things I do in some of my classes: original cartoons, original videos, and simulations. None of them's hard to do, and my students often appreciate them. And that's all I have. So thank you.
So last year when I was up here, I was talking about the projects that I had accomplished and had underway, and I talked to you about my photography that's in the Louisiana State Museum, and the first book that I did, which is Surveying the Landscape. And at that time, I had submitted my next book. I had a book contract for Higher Education by Design, and we were in the editing stage, and I was tussling back and forth with my editor about words, and it came out on April 26th this year, 2018, and it's on Amazon and a bunch of other places. It's actually been translated into a couple of other languages as well, and so not that you want to read it, but it's all about curriculum development and pedagogical development, and I use design principles for much of the book, which is why it's called Higher Education by Design. So this year, I was lucky enough to have some other book projects, and the one that I'm working on right now that I'm hoping will come out by this time next year is Research and Arts Practice, a guide for faculty and students. And basically that book is about arts practice as research. And there's a few books on this right now, but I break it down using inverse fractal concept analysis in order to break it down to the nth degree. And I show that very clearly that arts practice is actually research, and it has a great deal in common with formal research. There are only a couple of minor differences, but we're hoping that this is published by October of next year. Higher Education by Design, again, came out in April, and I have two pretty good reviews on it on Amazon. And basically, one of my wisest professors said, if you really want people to remember what it is that you're talking about, make sure that you say something that will probably anger them. So we're going to go ahead and try that out. As I made my way through higher education as an adult and through the arts, I also was lucky enough to become something called a Teach Fellow at Texas Tech University. And I developed a very great passion for teaching and pedagogy, because as I discovered through taking a lot of classes as an adult, that not many of my college professors knew how to teach very well. And as I did the Mellon Research Project, when I was at the University of Michigan, I had the opportunity to go to around 40 plus universities and interview 965 people, and many of them were also educators, faculty. And I would say that of the close to 400 faculty that I interviewed, perhaps only 10% of them were really, really good teachers. So we're talking about maybe 40 instructors out of 400 people. And so I decided I'd put together a curriculum planning guide for art and art history. And I had the pleasure of having a consultancy, a long-term consultancy with University of Alabama, Birmingham. And the chair there used my curriculum planning guide to improve pedagogy there. And then she asked me if I would do her a favor and write 29 new courses to replace their entire curriculum in the art department, which I did. which wasn't exactly the most popular thing to do with faculty. Faculty generally own curriculum, and they were a little skeptical, but through a couple of faculty development challenges and seminars, 100% of the curriculum was approved by the faculty and is now in use at University of Alabama, Birmingham, where actually I'm going this afternoon because of the CCAC conferences there tomorrow, today and tomorrow and Saturday, and I'm speaking at that conference on Friday. So I took that curriculum planning guide, and when I moved to Michigan State University, I went ahead and began to expand it into a book, which you can see here. So books are my current research, although I do draw and paint and still take photographs. But right now I'm doing a lot of writing. Basically, and I'll get to another slide in just a moment, I write every day, and I write every spare moment that I have, and I actually carve out quite a lot of time for writing. I have another book that I hope is going to come out about this time next in 2020 called Art by Design, The Future of the Arts in Higher Education. And we're finishing up that one right now with my publisher. And then thereafter, the next book that I'm planning is Philosophy and Theory in Plain English for Artists. And actually, we're using this in our philosophy class right now. It's been taught from twice, and then Tom Keefe over here, not Dr. Keefe, is going to be teaching from it this next term. So that's my current research. But I thought I'd give you a day in the life of Bruce Mackh. I get up between 3 and 4 every morning for about 30 minutes. I write in my journal. For the next hour and a half, I read emails, answer emails, send emails, or I do computer work, eat breakfast. From 7:30 to 7:45, I arrive here. I organize my to-do list. I get to work. I attend meetings, review documents, administrative work, which is everything that you can actually imagine. Usually have lunch. Like today, we had lunch at the barbecue place. Barbecue is my favorite thing. About 4 or 5 o'clock, I leave. I eat dinner at 5, between 5 and 6, and I watch Chris Matthews. And then from 6 until 11 or 12, I read, research, write, and teach. I'm teaching the math class online right now that we've created called The Art of Math. From 11 to 12, I go to bed, and then I get up again, and it all starts over. That's 70 to 20 hours a day, and that's my Monday through Friday. But on the weekends, of course, there's the weekends. I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, 3 to 4 in the morning. I work, I write in my journal about 60 to 90 minutes, and then I get onto the computer, work about another hour and a half, read emails, answer emails, send emails, or do computer work. Sometimes I'm here on the weekends because of rmcad open houses and other events. I read my class notifications. So if you're teaching in the liberal arts, every notification that pops up for you pops up for me. For all of our faculty, I read every one of them every week. And then, of course, I read, research, write, and teach, which is the life of Bruce Mackh. One of the funny things about me when I'm writing, I do this in my apartment. I use a Bluetooth headset, and I just walk around. I use a speech-to-text computer program, and so I just walk around my apartment as I sit and write, and then of course it takes it all down, and I have to edit it. But so that is the research that I do, and that's really about it. I know I'm a little bit early. Tom, I can't even see you there at all because of the light, but that's it. Thank you.